This is episode 87 with Terra Winston.
Welcome to the WorkLife Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Bryan Teare.
Hey guys and girls, what is up? This is your host as always, Bryan Teare, and welcome back to another episode of the WorkLife Comeback Podcast, episode 87 today, and I'm super excited to be speaking to an amazing guest, Terra Winston. Now, before we get to the episode, a shout out, as usual, to our sponsors. It's the guys at Rooster, and Rooster, if you don't know, is an awesome alarm clock app that allows you to wake up to whatever tone you choose. And I don't mean the boring tones that come stock with your iPhone or your Android. I mean things like voice notes from friends and family, inspiring messages, sports news, global news headlines, meditation tracks, and so much more. In fact, I even have a channel on the platform. So go check that out. It's Rooster on the Google Play Store or the App Store, and start waking up with a smile on your face. Now, on to today's episode. And Terra Winston is a leadership consultant and executive coach with 20 years of business consulting experience and an MBA from Stanford. Her clients have included Google, PepsiCo, BP, Miller's Coors, and the Dallas Cowboys. Terra realized early on in life the importance of a great education thanks to her parents, who modeled persistence and tenacity for her. She followed suit and became the girl who always got the good grades and did everything right. But while pursuing her MBA at Stanford, Terra struggled to determine what the smart thing for her was to do when all her classmates were launching major tech businesses in Silicon Valley. Her passion told her that there was something different for her, but her mind told her that if she didn't go for it at that time, she may miss out. Hashtag FOMO. After trying to avoid these voices for a while, she eventually decided to listen what her intuition was telling her and started doing the kind of work she'd always felt passionate about. Terra now runs her own business and has had the privilege of impacting hundreds of lives and careers through her leadership programs and coaching. She's found a way to channel her passions into success in multiple industries, from engineering to human resources and corporate America to entrepreneurship. It was a good one. And in this episode, you're going to learn how to deal with FOMO when everyone around you is doing cool shit, how to experience more enjoyment and fulfillment in your life right now, 3 ways to change things up in your career, common mistakes people make when trying to get promoted, tips for all the introverts out there to get noticed at work. What up, introverts? How to switch careers without starting from the bottom again, and what to do before quitting your job to become an entrepreneur. Guys, this was an amazing interview. I urge you to listen all the way to the end. And as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in the show at bryanteare.com/087. But for now, you know what time it is. It's time to go and hang out with Terra. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm excited to be speaking to Terra Winston. Terra, welcome to the WorkLife Comeback.
Bryan, thank you so much. I've been waiting to be on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and I think for people listening, they're in for a treat today. Going through, like I mentioned before we started recording this, going through your work and what you're up to and your story is so amazing. So I can't wait to share it with everybody out there. But before we get into that, why don't you tell people listening about, who it is that you are and your quarter life story?
I love that question. So I am a Jersey girl who I wish I could say I was that person that knew immediately who I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't. And actually, I was doing some type of exercise, and they always ask you, well, what did you want to be when you wanted to grow up way back in the day? And I called my mother because I couldn't remember. And I called my mom and she said, you never said. And I think that's the story of my life. I never said. I never knew, had a predetermined plan about who I was going to be. I kind of evolved into it. And so, my quarter life story is, I was good at math and I was good at writing, which people keep telling us is not supposed to go together, but I keep meeting more and more of us that are like that. So I ended up in engineering because why not? um, and then realized that I really didn't care why things worked, but I cared deeply how and why people worked.
Mm.
But I was already got this degree, so I'm like, oh well, I'll keep doing this. So I took that and moved into consulting, doing technical work, and realized yet again I didn't want to get more technical, and that spurred me to go to business school because I said, okay, let me reimagine myself. So I went to business school, and I said, well, what does everybody do when they go to business school? And at that time, there's a lot of people talking about going to marketing and brand management. I said, I know, I'll do that. It sounded like a great idea at the time, but I did an internship and realized I don't like that. And I kept coming back to the same truth. I knew the thing that I loved was how and why people worked, but that to me felt like just a love, not a vocation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we all want to make lots of money and be super rich and powerful, right? And so I kept doubting that voice inside of me. I went back to consulting, and I did that for a while until I got bored and ended up moving into um, the human resources side of business. Because now I'm like, okay, finally, you have to accept that there's a part of you that this thing will not go away. So I moved into, I got a job at PepsiCo and started doing, human resource, organizational development work, that juicy stuff. And I was like, yes, now I'm on my path. And Brian, you know what happened? I got bored again. Crap. At this point now you start to think clearly, I just don't want to work. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
I kept
Or
looking
like this
for,
is how work is just supposed to be.
oh, this is how work is supposed to be. And and I got to this point where I was getting promoted, I was doing everything right, and I still wasn't happy. And I I went on vacation, and kind of sat back and was like, look, I've got to make a change, and I can't figure it out. I'm a very smart person, and at least my mother keeps telling me so, but I can't figure out what my next step is going to be that's going to make me 100% guaranteed happy. And as I called my college roommate and I said to her, what would you do if you could quit your job? And she said, oh, I go to France and study French and eat baguettes. This was 2008, so like
Very eat, pray, love.
eat, pray, love in the middle of a recession, the worst recession, right? And so she finished talking, and I said, "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. What, girl? There is a recession, and we have bills." And so she left, and she started telling me, "Oh, I know plenty of people have done this." And she said, "Well, Tara, what would you do if you could quit your job?" And I said, "Well, if we're going to be stupid, I would go somewhere and practice my Spanish." And Brian, the minute that I said it, I knew that I knew that I knew that that was my answer. Something deep inside spoke to me. And it scared me because like I said, remember recession, bills. What do rational people do is not quit your job and go off and pick up a Spanish dictionary. But that's what I did. I went off. I spent a couple months in Argentina. And then when I came back, I started working with a coach that helped me realize that voice inside of me that has always been my true north, and I had been denying it all this time. And I knew what I loved to do. I knew that I loved to coach people, and I loved to train, and I loved to learn. And my challenge is I had always been defining that as a certain type of job, instead of letting what my heart desired create the opportunity the way I needed to see it. And that was how Interactions was born.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And there's so much I could go into there. I love early on how you said, this voice kept coming back. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the documentary Finding Joe or the concept of the hero's journey, but it says in there, like, if you keep ignoring what your kind of soul wants you to do, it's going to keep coming back louder and louder and louder until you act on it. So I love that you eventually follow that. And what I wanted to ask was, Do you think you mentioned, you were trying to find this one job that would make you happy? Do you think there is such a job, or is it more about the way that we kind of show up?
I definitely know without a doubt that there are jobs that will make you unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
That is very true. But I think in terms of making you happy, it is how we show up. The reason I know this is I've seen actually clients who are very unhappy in their jobs, and we started doing some coaching work to really reveal kind of where their values are in alignment, how it supported their long-term vision, or even helping them move out of those roles. And all of a sudden, what was miserable yesterday is totally bearable today.
Mm-hmm.
And our attitudes go into a lot into how we process the right types of roles. But I think usually the biggest challenge is when a role, the perfect job is one that is in perfect alignment with what you're trying to build. You can't think about a job as an end destination. There's no position, because even if you were to stay in the exact same role, in the exact same company with the exact same desk, the role will still change because the world around it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so finding something that is perfect. The question is it the right role for where I am on my journey, for where the organization is on its journey? And then you can find like a really nice match.
Mm-hmm.
That's what perfect is.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits that we have today as millennials is, and that name alone sometimes annoys me, the way it gets thrown around, but, call it what it is. That's the name of our generation. I think one of the benefits is that it's no longer necessary to be in one job and do that for 40 years and then retire. We can be in a role for 2 or 3 years, build up the skills and the network that we need, and then move on to something else. But I think one of the things that plagues the millennial generation is FOMO, and worrying, like, seeing what other people are doing and thinking like, oh, that looks really cool, I want to try that thing, and not really giving ourselves enough time to explore what we really want. How do we avoid this horrible thing called FOMO?
It's funny because I think FOMO was the phrase itself is only a couple years old, but the concept is as old as time, right? We've always been looking at other people's lawns, wondering why their grass is greener. And what I've found is that jobs are a lot like Facebook, right? All you see is the best days, the best moments, all the perks. You don't see all the other pieces of it. And so it's very easy to get kind of caught up in, man, if I were here, I would have this title already, or I would be doing these types of things, or this sounds sexier than this thing that I'm doing. But it can all be an illusion, or it can be a really, really sexy job that leads you nowhere where you want to go. When a lot of times when I work with my clients, the very first thing we establish is what is that long-term vision that you have for your life? Because even like the juiciest, sexiest, most high-profile role may actually be a diversion that takes you off your path to where you really want to go.
Mm-hmm. And
right?
Sorry to cut you off there.
No.
And you experience this. So I think you don't give yourself enough credit. You're highly educated, and during your MBA, you experienced this where, your classmates were launching major tech businesses in Silicon Valley, but that wasn't really like what you wanted to do. So I think you experienced that firsthand.
When I still do, every time I open up the alumni magazine, I'm like, oh, look, he's worth $1 billion. Look at that. Okay, what am I doing with my life? You have those moments,
Mm-hmm.
but what I found is, and honestly, when I left even my corporate job, I could very clearly see a path up. Right. And I actually, I want this for each and every one of you. I want you to have enough confidence to see yourself in that top job, or in, building that big business, whatever that thing is. And the question should be not, can I? Do I want that? Do I want the life that goes with that? Do I want the work that goes with that? What I found and at the time, it's just so funny. I was in Silicon Valley, at the height of the .com crazy. My classmates were, building these amazing things. And I just kept saying, I should want that. I should. That very insidious word. I should want that. But I don't. I don't have that idea. I don't want that life. I don't care about those things. I don't want to read about that stuff. And had to sit back and say, you know what? I'd rather spend my days doing the things that I want to do, that I enjoy doing, and have confidence that that's going to bring me the rewards that I want.
Mm-hmm. I love
Right.
that.
And that's the piece of it.
I love that.
And so now, am I ever going to be a bagillionaire like some of my classmates? I don't know. It might still happen, but at the same time, I don't regret the great life that I have. And again, Bryan, you and I and other coaches, we get the benefit of seeing behind the veil. People open up to us, and so I've talked to very successful people, and I've seen so much pain. And I know that whatever that glossy thing is that you have the fear of missing out on, it comes with a lot of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes you would not exchange your baggage to have what they've gone through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and no one's immune to that. I still get it myself of seeing influencers online and thinking like, oh, they're up to such cool things.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's a highlights reel. You don't see that maybe they don't spend any time with their families, or you can have all the money, but there's only so much you can do with that. And I love that you mentioned, asking yourself, is that really what you want? Like, put yourself in that position and kind of visualize what it would be like, and then think about, like, is that really what I want to create? I think that's really good advice. So if we are going to combat FOMO, how can we find more enjoyment and fulfillment in our work and life right now?
Right now, what everyone can do is pay attention to your values, right? So we have a tendency to think about values as being mom and apple pie, patriotism, and all those things. And those are very big and important values. But we each have this list of things that we love, and you can very easily Google, list of values, and you'll get 200 or 300 ones, and you'll find things like accomplishment, adventure, humility, teamwork, right? So each one of us has our own unique list of things that we absolutely love. And I will tell you, usually the parts of your job you don't like are things that are not in alignment with your values. Mm-hmm. And so what you can find is you'll see in patterns, like, when were you your most happy, right? It might have been that you spend lots of time outdoors. So you may have a value for adventure. You might spend lots of time with your family. You might have been lost deep in a spreadsheet because you may be someone that loves analytics, right? Paying attention to those times when you're most happy will start to reveal the values that work for you. And you can sit right today and look for those things that are missing. So when I work with clients who are very physical, right? There's some people that they need to work out, they need to either be out in nature or they need to sweat a little bit. People that just have different things they need. When they get really busy, that's the first thing that falls away. Mm-hmm. And they will start. Now, nothing in your spirit will say, you know what, I need a little sweat. Your mind doesn't say that, but you will start to feel uneasy, right? You will get short-tempered with people. You'll be mad, and all of a sudden our brains start to try to figure out what's wrong, and then we blame it on, like, the guy at work that said that wrong thing, or the traffic, right? We're not very good. Our insides aren't very good at ascertaining what the issue is. But if I know that that's something you need, for homework, oftentimes for my very physical clients, I may just have them walk around the block or go outside and stand in the grass with their shoes off, something to get them reconnected. And you'll find that's what your spirit needs. And so the more that you can connect with those, bring back those things that maybe you've denied or you've ignored because you don't think they matter, you'll find the entire thing shifts. And I can give you a very real example that just happened last week. Talking to a client, we spent most of the time talking about work, and things just were not clicking, right? He wasn't clicking with the boss. He was struggling with some discipline issues because he's a first line manager, and just everything was just kind of ugh. And the more we broke it down, it come to find out that he was a fairly elite athlete. Think Tough Mudders and Spartan races, that type of thing. But those take a lot of time and money, right? So he and his wife had decided to alternate. He would do his things one year, she would do another year. This was his off year. He craved, his spirit needed some of these things, but he had put it aside. Once we started to talk through it and start to bring little pieces of that back in, everything in his universe brightened. All of a sudden, the boss was a lot more bearable than they used to be. And the people at work, they were able to solve problems better. And it lightened everything. So recognizing that you are a full human being. If there are some values that you have that are not being met, bring them in small ways. Mm-hmm. And you would be much happier with where you are. And quite honestly, you get a much clearer view of the things you want to change. I had someone come to me, she was looking for a job and decided that she was going to look for a job in Singapore. And I was like, that's very cool. What do you love about Singapore? And she said, oh, I don't know. I've never been. What? Huh? And so now I'm baffled, and we keep talking because okay, we can get a job in Singapore, why not? And still, it probably took us maybe 3 or 4 weeks to work through this process. That finally, what I recognized is that she had such a high value for adventure, and she was in a rut. And I finally said to her, if I get you to jump out of an airplane, can you look for a job locally? How about that? And we were able to separate the two so she can get her itch scratched on the adventure side and her itch for a new job scratched, but we didn't have to conflict the two. And that's what we often do, right? So when people say like, oh, I try to make my boyfriend or my girlfriend be my everything, or I'm so unhappy with everything, so this job has to be all of this. Now, finding the perfect spouse, a partner, or the perfect job, that's hard. Perfect doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. But if you don't put so much on that person or on that job and go find those things that speak to your spirit, then you have a much more reasonable expectation of those things so that you can be more fulfilled with them.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you mentioned the Singapore example because I was speaking to a mentor of mine and he was saying like, a lot of young people today, you hear them saying like, I just want to quit my job and go travel. And mm-hmm. I think it's a really dangerous thing to be throwing around because what he said was like, what is it about the traveling that is so appealing to you? And often it is just seeing other people traveling and, oh, I want to do that. But it's like, what is the thing that you're going to get from traveling? And then how can you get that thing already without having to spend money going to another part of the world, and then you come back and things are still exactly like they were before. So I really love the mentioning of values. It's such a simple exercise, but one that hardly anyone does. So I'm glad we touched on that. So if we are going to, change things up in our careers, especially, I kind of see that there's 3 alternatives. The one would be to get a promotion, the one would be to change careers, and the other one would be to start our own business. And I want to dive into each one of those briefly. If we are looking for a promotion within our current job, what are the common mistakes that people make when they are trying to be promoted?
Wow, I'm so glad you asked this because people are not going to like what I have to say, because usually
those are the best answers.
Best answers. But usually we have been all the way through our educational systems have been trained to do the best possible job. So we take our job description and we do the best we can at it. And I will tell you that allows me to say, thank you, you're doing a great job. Keep doing that same job. That does nothing for me to want to promote you now. In those first couple jobs that that's usually what you think you're doing. And that's why you're getting promoted. But let me tell you, it's not. Because there's the job description at the next level, I need to see that you're actually demonstrating some of those things, right? So if you do your job really, really well, but you're not extending beyond to what the next role is, then chances are that there's no reason for me to promote you. Now that's the easy answer. I will tell you the other answer is that most people don't know who promotes them. Now, you think that your boss promotes you. I would say that that's probably true in 10% of the cases. If you're in a very small company, that may be the case. However, in most organizations, it is your boss plus their peers plus their bosses that are all involved in a decision about who gets a new opportunity. And so one of the most important things that you can do is understand who promotes you and make sure that you've got some level of reputation or relationship with some of those people.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is you may have a boss that is very, very gung ho, absolutely loves you. But if that boss is a bit more introverted or a bit quieter, they may go into these rooms where decisions are being made and be overpowered by someone else who is just louder or has a bigger presence or maybe has been playing politics a little bit better. And in those cases, you will want someone else in the room to be able to stand up and say, no, Bryan's the right guy for this job. And so often people lose out on the opportunity of being visible to the other players that are involved in that decision. That just makes the promotion much easier.
Mm-hmm. So basically, not just being really good at your job description, but also doing some of the things that are at that next level.
Exactly. So some of the things at the next level, and also building relationships.
Right? Relationships are key.
Absolutely.
You mentioned introversion, and it's something that I've spoken to a couple of clients about, where they feel like some areas are easier for extroverted people, and I'm guessing that this doesn't just apply for the promotions section of this discussion, but if people are slightly more introverted, what can they do to be seen and enjoy some of those opportunities that the more extroverted people might experience?
Well, I would say, first of all, don't believe the hype. There are so many strong, powerful, successful introverted leaders. I feel that sometimes we do have a world that, particularly a business world in the West, that is very extrovert driven, but introverts play this game so very, very well. So don't be intimidated. But what you have to do is you have to figure out how to get the same things done, but done in your way. So here's a perfect example. An introvert does not necessarily need a massive network of people to get things done. You can have a small network of people, but have that network be filled with connectors. So those connectors can get you to those places. So you don't have to know everybody. You got a guy. You got a guy that knows everybody, or you got a girl that knows everybody. At the same time, you find a way to lean into your power. So I guess the best example I can give you is a great friend of mine. She is fairly introverted and fairly soft-spoken. And so, but she's a chief marketing officer of an organization, and she would always have us laugh at these tales. She would go to a trade, one of those conventions or trade shows, and when everyone's passing cards and shaking hands and doing very extroverted things that would exhaust her. And she said, "Oh, Terra, I can't." So she stopped bringing cards because she didn't want to play the game. But she would find out who she wanted to speak to or who she needed to meet with, and she would meet with them. And after a couple of trade shows, she began to get this reputation. They started calling her the ghost. They're like, she's the ghost. If you ever get a chance to meet with her, oh my goodness, right? And they get into meetings with her, and they kind of have to lean in a little bit because her voice is a little bit quiet. That's power, right? And that may be more power than someone like me who's like, "Hi, yay, my name is Terra. Here's my card." Right? So the key is find your own path that allows you to connect with the people that you need to connect with to be successful. That allows you to build the networks that you need. That allows you to show up with the gravitas and the executive presence that you need. That's the key. And I would say that's the key to this whole game around how do I be an authentic leader as well, right? It doesn't mean that the rules, be they good rules or bad rules, the rules of the game are set. And while we try to change some of those structural things that maybe cause bias, if that's the rules of the game, the question is, what is my way of delivering on those rules?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that goes for if you're introverted, that goes for if I know some people who love to be mavericks, so they love to be rule breakers, right? It goes for whatever you think is your thing.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, you're definitely not the only introverted person in the room. We always seem to think we're the odd one out. So we spoke about promotions. The second option that I would say for changing things up is to change careers. But I can see how a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, because if they've been at a certain level in their current career, the thought of starting at the bottom after moving might be a little bit, not daunting, but it might be a blow to the ego. So how can we switch careers and not necessarily have to start from the bottom?
So one of the things that I think, millennials are really, really good at, and that I have to teach all of us old people how to do better at, is to not define yourself in terms of one type of role or one function, right? Who are you? I'm an accountant. Well, that's great. That means that I can always look for you for accountant jobs. And if you want to change careers and no longer want to be an accountant, and now you want to be a ski instructor, then I go, wow, you've only been an accountant. You have to start at the bottom. But if you can define yourself by terms that are not functional, right? Are you someone that likes to create order out of chaos? Are you a strategist that can drive analysis in a certain direction? How do you take what you do, what your secret sauce is, and speak to that piece of you? That part of you is transferable, highly transferable. And all of your experiences are then built into making that a stronger case. And so you can slide into a nonprofit role potentially. You can go into something that maybe has not even been created yet. Because, oh, by the way, organizations are evolving every day. The number of jobs that exist now that didn't exist 2 years ago are shocking, right? So find a way to define what you do in terms that are not so tied to a particular function or a particular level, and that will unleash you to find lots of different things. It also gives the people who you are connecting with, who you're hoping are going to help you find opportunities, it gives them more to bite into. Because if you say to them, you know what, I'm a marketing analyst, they will call you anytime someone says those two words together in that order, marketing and analyst. But if you talk to them about the fact that you are a creative problem solver that does something else, then they have more ammunition to say, you know what, I just spoke to this guy at a startup, and I think he could use that. Or I was just talking to my friend at IBM. They have a whole team called this. That's what they do, right? So you're just giving more legs to what you have.
I love that. Just a quick aside here. You mentioned how some jobs don't exist that didn't exist 2 years ago. So I've interviewed a guy called Adam Ward, who's a professional Lego builder. But the other example that I wanted to share was, I recently came across a girl on Instagram who, she's a travel photographer. She's never left home and she's never used a camera. What she does, so she's got agoraphobia, which is the fear of leaving home. But what she does is she goes on Google Street View and takes pictures of really beautiful places. And she's now, she's been exhibited in galleries and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, I love it.
It's crazy. I'll share the link with you afterwards and I'll put it in the show notes too. But I guess that does lead into the third way to kind of change up your work situation, and that is starting your own business. What are some steps people should take before just quitting and, becoming an entrepreneur or a one-entrepreneur in some cases?
The entrepreneur game is very seductive, and I love it, Brian. I know that you love it, and it's okay for people who don't love it. I think we have this interesting fear of missing out. Like, okay, everyone's going to start a business and make $1 gagillion. I should be doing it too. But no, I mean, if that's not your thing, that's not your thing. So first step is is this what I really want? Are there other ways to get the things that I want, right? There are other ways to make money. There are other ways to have more freedom. So the first question is this what I really want? But beyond that, um, what I often tell people is if you know you're going to start a business, start thinking through just the practical things, like health insurance, disability insurance, like all this little stuff that the minute that you say I quit and then do whatever little fancy dance you're gonna do in front of your boss to, to tell them to kiss your back end, um, before you do
Which I
that,
recommend don't doing.
which you say probably you shouldn't do.
Always leave on
Uh,
good terms.
leave a good relationship. But I will tell you, my first big contract was actually my old company, the company I just left. And I have worked with almost all my old employers at this point, as clients. So I definitely did not burn any bridges. That's a little sidebar. But so really look at the specifics. I think entrepreneurship is such a beautiful thing, but it's a job, right? And you would not take a job if you didn't actually look at what the benefits were, right? How much do you need to make in order to fund your lifestyle? How long can you go without making that? What are your health options? What are your if you have kids, what are your insurance options? Things like that. So really look at it like it's a real job, and start making plans as far as you can in advance. Um, that also goes with your Rolodex and your contacts, right? The, right now, you can pick up the phone and you can say, "Hi, my name is Bryan, and I am from Citibank. Hi, my name is Bryan, and I work for the University of," like, fill in whatever the company is that you're with that may come with some clout. The day after you quit, you are, "Hi, my name is Bryan," and they say, "Who?" So if there are relationships that you think you want to strengthen, that you've built that may be beneficial, start doing that now. Start doing it under your own banner. If you're someone who, but by luck of your organization, speaks on panels or is visible out like that, it's so much easier to build relationships with the meeting planners now than to start doing it later when they don't know who you are and you don't have the clout of a sponsor organization behind you.
Mhm.
So spend some time. And then my last really sneaky advice is that if you are currently employed, you basically are being paid to live inside of one of the nicest universities that ever existed.
I love that.
Because when I started, like I'm someone that I love what I do. I'm an artisan, right? And so I said, I love to coach and teach. But you know what? I can't do that without selling something to somebody. I would starve,
Mhm.
right? And oh, by the way, I've got books that I have to do accounting for, and like all the other stuff with the business. And so if you're making plans to leave, you rather than go off and take a very expensive sales course, why don't you have a couple lunches with someone from the sales team? Understand how they get prospects, understand how they close deals. You could talk to almost any organization that you have, and that is for profit or nonprofit. There are people that do all these things that you may have to learn how to do. Take advantage of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I often say that, a fourth one I'd add there is to start something on the side while you're still employed, and treat your employer as an investor in your side gig,
Mhm.
so the bills are still being paid while you build up your idea and validate that idea.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely, and there are some companies now that are actually very open to that.
mhm,
They recognize that they may not be your only love.
mhm.
And so pay attention to companies. Some of the older school companies still have moonlighting um, rules, so be careful about that and how you use company resources. But there are actually quite a few organizations that they are totally fine and will actually support your side gig.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Something that, a trap that I think a lot of new entrepreneurs fall in, and even established entrepreneurs, is you end up, you have this vision that I'm going to live the 4-hour work week, and you end up working like, like an 80-hour work week. Um, do you think there is such a thing as work-life balance? And if so, how do we kind of achieve that and keep that front of mind?
there is work-life balance, but it has to be a decision, and it can be something that is perfect for you. So I know some people who are they're not workaholics in the sense that they feel driven, but they feel alive when they work, and their work-life balance is work, 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 life, a little bit of life, a lot of bit of work, and that's perfect for them. And then there's a whole bunch of other people that say, no, I need something a little bit more in between. I need more time. So what you have to do is you need to, number one, define what that means for you. And no one else can do it. So you define what that means for you, and then be okay with the consequences of that. Because I gotta tell you, in the world that we live in, chances are that person that's putting in the 80 hours is probably going to get a few more benefits, baubles, cash, whatever, however you evaluate your success. The 80-hour-a-week person is probably going to get a little bit more of that than the 40-hour-a-week person. The key to work-life balance is being okay with that, because that means that while you didn't get all the other 40 hours worth of baubles, you got baby giggles, you had walks in the park with your dog, you had quality time with a parent that you're caring for. Like, there's all this other stuff. Life is more than just baubles. And so the key is to recognize that I need to define my success in the fullest way that it means to me. And then I can evaluate, is it the 4-hour work week for me, or is it the 80-hour work week? But I think what happens is people say, I want it to be the 4-hour work week, but I want all the benefits, I want the exact same thing that this guy over here is going to get for busting his hump for 80 hours. And that just, there's very little proof that happens. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I also don't want his life. And that's okay. So I've got to figure out what my right formula is, and don't be afraid of it to be trial and error. But there'll be times when it ramps up and ramps down, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I'm picking up a sort of a theme here that, the way to create a life and a career that allows us to be at our best is to ask what is really true for us and get clear on what these things mean for us, and being okay with not needing to be the same as everyone else and having everything, but just knowing what success or happiness means to us, and then ignoring everything else. Terra, I do want to be mindful of the time here. Is there anything else you feel is worth mentioning for people listening that we haven't touched on?
I think just I think you summed it up so well about kind of being, you get to choose and being choiceful. I need everyone who's listening to my voice to know, and that is scary as hell. It's easy to say, it is so hard to do. There's some days when you're gonna break your arm patting yourself on the back because it feels so good, and other days when you're gonna be a little bit afraid because maybe I should want more or want less or whatever. But that's natural. So it's okay to be scared, but it's so worth it.
I love it. And yeah, I'd add find other people in a similar position and spend more time with those people. Terra, I do want to be mindful of the time. As I said, before I wrap up, I've got some quick fire questions at the end here. So just a sentence or two that comes to mind. The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told in your 20s?
Excellence is appreciated, but often not required.
Ooh.
We spend so much time being perfect. I'm one of those perfection people. And then you get out there and you realize that the entrepreneur who actually did it while you were perfecting it, they're making the money. You sit at home with a perfect product and zero cash. Or you realize that person that raised their hand and their answer wasn't perfect, they got recognized before you did. So excellence is appreciated, and that's not an excuse to be bad. But
Speed
excellence
of implementation.
Is exactly. But get on it rather than getting it perfect.
What is the biggest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Save the world. You see what we've done with it? This is the first generation that I think fully recognizes how integrated everything is. And I know I've made a shift into understanding that I can be financially successful, I can have career fulfillment, and I can still aim my mark and my mission and making the world a better place. I think, each one of you, as you are figuring out your quarter life pivot, if you recognize that there's more than one bottom line, and that the world the world desperately needs good people to be thinking about how not only to get them to maximize profit or maximize their own success, but really maximize it for all of us. That's how this world changes. Mm-hmm. So you guys can do it.
It's powerful. Before I get to the final question, Terra, where can people go to find out more about you and your work and all the other things you got going on?
Oh, I love to connect with people. Absolutely. So whether you see me at a conference, I do a lot of speaking, or you find me online, please do. I am on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and I'm all at Terra Winston. That's Terra Winston. I'm not that creative, so it all has the same name. And stop by my website, interactions.com. I've got other blog posts. I post resources and videos. So come by, say hi.
Will do. And I'll put that in the show notes for everyone listening so they can go find that really easily. Terra, before I get to the final question, I just want to take a second to acknowledge you for not just coming on today and sharing your story and your message, but the journey that you've been on and, asking those questions and, like we mentioned, people all around you were doing these really impressive looking things, but still having the integrity to go after what it is that you wanted and not just what would look impressive to other people. I think that takes a lot of character, and I really admire that about you. The final question that I have. Thank you. No problem. The final question that I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
Ask someone for help. We are so bad at using the resources around us. And so get used to asking for help. And I don't care if you need a perfect coconut cake recipe, or if you're looking for someone to mentor you in a certain area, or if you're looking for another job. Get used to the practice of asking for help, and it will serve you the rest of your life.
Yeah, it makes you stronger, not weaker.
Absolutely.
Terra Winston, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
My pleasure. And Bryan, I told you I was going to say this. Where were you when I needed you when I was 20? I'm so glad that this exists. And the honest answer is, I feel like I need a quarter life comeback every couple of years. So thank you for this.
So there you have it, guys and girls. And let me be the first to say, oh man, what an amazing episode this was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if you did too, I'd love it if you could share it around with your friends on social media. And as always, shoot me a tweet at Bryan Teare to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, I just want to reinforce what Terra spoke about, and that is that you don't need to be doing the thing that everyone around you is doing, no matter how cool or amazing or great that looks. Focus on what it is that you really want, even if it's not running your own business or doing that big thing and getting thousands of followers on social media. Focus on what's really true for you. Ask yourself, is this something that I actually want? And if it's not, start getting clear on what that thing actually is. And if you need some assistance with that, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at bryanteare.com/087, and make sure you go and sign up at quarterlifecomeback.com to get all these episodes and even more. I've got a lot more goodness. I know I say this every week, but I've got a lot more good stuff coming your guys' way in the near future. So make sure you sign up at quarterlifecomeback.com. Quick shout out again, if you haven't joined our Facebook group, come and hang out. It's at bryanteare.com/FB group. I'd love to have you join us there, and we can talk about how to live better lives and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for being here. I am truly, truly grateful and appreciative that you spend time every week with me. And until next week, guys, keep creating your quarter life comeback.